Cold mornings, frosty windows. Yup, it's that time of year. So treat yourself and start your day with a cup of fresh roasted Sterling Roastery coffee, sourced from around the world and roasted multiple times a week for unbeatable freshness. It's the kind of warm-up every sports fan deserves this holiday season. And right now, you can win one of 3 $50 Sterling gift cards, perfect for gifting or building your own winning lineup of Java in the morning. Enter today at sportshistorynetwork.com/giveaways so you can wake up, warm up, and Sterling up this holiday season. Again, that's sportshistorynetwork.com/giveaways.
125 defining moments, one legendary league. This is Darren Hayes of the Pigskin Dispatch podcast, and a great book is out right now, NFL Moments, 125 icons and stories that define the NFL. It's a definitive visual history of the National Football League, packed with iconic images and untold stories behind the game's biggest plays and its greatest players. From the early legends like Red Grange to today's stars like Patrick Mahomes, this book is a touchdown for fans who crave more than just stories. So give your football bookshelf a Hall of Fame upgrade or snag a holiday gift for that NFL history buff on your shopping list. Pick up NFL Moments, available now at your favorite bookseller.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
Hello, sports fans, and welcome to another edition of Yesterday Sports on the Sports History Network. Today, I'm going to talk about the Minnesota Vikings. And although I have already done a podcast on the 1970 Vikings, I wanted to expand on it a little and include the 1971 Vikings. Here's a question I often hear, especially from Minnesota Vikings fans. Would the 1970 and or 1971 Vikings have won the Super Bowl if they had Joe Kapp or Fran Tarkenton at quarterback? Here's my answer. First, I should point out that the Vikings lost 1 Super Bowl with Joe Kapp and 3 with Fran Tarkenton. So maybe a better question is, would they have reached the Super Bowl with a better quarterback? In my view, they wouldn't have beaten the Cowboys in 1971, even if they had Kapp or Tarkenton. The 1971 Cowboys are somewhat underrated. They started off slowly with a 4-3 record, but after Coach Landry chose Staubach as the starting quarterback, they won 10 straight games. Looking at the stats from the 1971 NFC Divisional Playoff between Dallas and Minnesota, the Cowboys' offense didn't do much against the Purple People Eaters' defense, but they didn't need to. The Doomsday defense was firing on all cylinders and forced 5 turnovers. Minnesota was never in the game, trailing 20-3 after 3 quarters, before scoring a safety and a meaningless touchdown late in the 4th quarter. One could argue that the Vikings wouldn't have thrown 4 interceptions if they had Kapp or Tarkenton behind center. Maybe that's true, and it probably would have made the game more competitive. But you've got to give the Doomsday defense its due. Now let's say, for argument's sake, the Vikings beat the Cowboys. They would then have to face the 49ers in the championship game. The same team that beat the Vikings in the playoffs in 1970 and in 1971 regular season. Could they have beaten the 49ers? They were 0-2 in 2 tries. 2 offensive players from the 1971 team made the Pro Bowl, receiver Bob Grimm and tackle Ron Yary. Yary also earned All-Pro honors. 3 defensive players made the Pro Bowl, safety Paul Krause, defensive end Carl Eller, and defensive tackle Alan Page. Eller and Page also gained All-Pro recognition, and Page was awarded the NFL MVP. The 1970 team had two offensive players on the Pro Bowl team, running back Dave Osborne and receiver Gene Washington. Kicker Fred Cox also made the Pro Bowl. On defense, four players, Eller, Page, defensive tackle Gary Larson, and safety Carl Kosalki, made the Pro Bowl. Eller and Page also received All-Pro honors. I believe the 1970 Vikings would have had a better chance of reaching the Super Bowl with Joe Kapp as quarterback. They avenged their Super Bowl loss to the Chiefs in Week 1 with a 27-10 victory, and then crushed the Cowboys in a Week 5 54-13. However, they were upset by the 49ers in the divisional playoffs 17-14. Quarterback Gary Cawazzo had a poor game, completing only 9 of 27 passes for 146 yards with 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions. Would Kapp have performed better? Probably. Now let's say they beat the 49ers. They would then have to face the Cowboys in the championship game, and this was a much stronger Cowboys team than the one they beat in Week 5. Could they have broken through the Doomsday defense with Kapp as the quarterback? And if they managed to get past Dallas, they would have to play the Colts in the Super Bowl, another team with an outstanding defense. The Vikings should have signed Joe Kapp for the 1970 season. He wasn't a great quarterback, but he knew how to win, and his leadership skills were unmatched. The team lost something without its inspirational leader. But there was also another aspect the Vikings were missing from 1969 to 1972 that is often overlooked: a powerful running game. Dave Osborne was the Vikings' top rusher in 1969, amassing 643 yards with a 3.5-yard average per carry. Osborne was followed by Bill Brown, who gained 430 yards. The Chiefs weren't concerned about the Vikings' running game in Super Bowl IV, so they focused on applying a strong pass rush on Joe Kapp. The Chiefs won 23-7, and the Vikings managed only 67 rushing yards. Osborne led the team in rushing again in 1970 with 681 yards, but he averaged only 3.3 yards per carry. As a team, the Vikings averaged just 3.2 yards per carry for the season. In the playoff game against the 49ers, the Vikings gained 117 yards on the ground, which is average at best. The 49ers won 17-14. Quint Jones was the Vikings' leading rusher in 1971 with 675 yards, while the team averaged only 3.5 yards per carry. The Vikings gained just 101 yards rushing against the Cowboys in the divisional playoff and lost 20-12. In 1972, the Vikings had a new quarterback, Fran Tarkenton. Tarkenton had played for Minnesota from 1961 to 1966 before spending the next 5 seasons with the New York Giants. The Vikings' passing game improved, but their running game did not. Oscar Reed was the team's leading rusher with 639 yards, and the Vikings finished the season with a disappointing 7-7 record. The Vikings finally addressed their lack of a running game by drafting Chuck Foreman in the first round of the 1973 draft. Foreman ran for 801 yards on 182 carries, averaging 4.4 yards per carry, and added another 362 yards receiving. The Vikings gained 141 rushing yards in their playoff game against the Redskins and 203 yards against the Cowboys in the NFC Championship game. They defeated Dallas 27-10 to win the NFC title and advance to their second Super Bowl. So my point is that the 1970 and 1971 Vikings depended too much on their defense. Would they have gone further if they had signed Kapp in 1970 or traded for Tarkenton in 1971 instead of waiting until 1972? Sure, it's possible, maybe even likely. But I don't see a Vince Lombardi trophy without a strong running game. That will conclude my podcast for today. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you, and God bless.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com. You did not see their faces on the Wheaties boxes, nor did they have the headlines, but they were breaking barriers, one pitch at a time. The integration of minor league baseball, a history and player register, 1946 to 1959, by Rick Swain and Gary C. Fink, shines a light on the overlooked heroes who paved the way for future legends. From dusty bus rides to hostile crowds, these players fought for a place in a game that did not want to see them win. More than history, it's a tribute to courage, perseverance, and the power of a game to change. Honor their legacy today and grab a copy of The Integration of Minor League Baseball at your favorite bookseller.